I would like to just first of all mention that Galtung trained me in many ways. I was a member of Transcend, the global network of peace researchers and practitioners he established about 2 decades ago. And when I was a graduate student and then postgrad in Washington, D.C. area, Galtung, I organized many of Galtung workshops in the Washington, D.C. chapter. And he kindly invited me to his residence for many dinner conversations. And then after I was done with my graduate studies, he and me as a junior partner, worked together in some practical context, such as the Israel Palestine. So I owe him a lot. And the inspiration he gave me, not only as a scholar, but also as a practitioner, really seeing how he does things, gave me a really different perspective about what's possible with peace work. In my presentation, I would like to highlight lesser known aspect of Galtung's contributions, which I, as a peace-building professor, don't really see taught or discussed, though I believe they deserve to be known better. So I'm going to highlight that. And toward the end, I will articulate some of more of a generalizable lessons from my point of view about what the field should look at more carefully, inspired by Galtung. But before I do so, I would like to just draw upon a brilliant presentation my colleague Jacqueline did, which is to say that there are well-known aspects of Galtung's contribution, such as direct structural cultural violence. He recently added nature violence, positive peace and negative peace. If you take an undergraduate course, undergraduate peace studies course 101, you may be introduced to something like conflict as goal incompatibility, attitude, behavior, contradiction triangle. Depending upon who your teacher is, you may learn about diagnosis, prognosis, and therapy. But usually, when you take introductory peace and conflict courses, students actually come away learning about Galtung, at least to the extent. But in my view, there is an ocean of things that should be popularized that are not attended to. In 2012, I was at the Galtung Institute in Germany, together with Johan Galtung and a group of about 40 Transcend members from all over the world. In that meeting, he said very clearly, there are four books which are most important to my life. And I wonder what those 4 books are. And I'm going to just highlight them so that people who have never heard of those books can get interested in reading about them. Number 1 is A Theory of Peace. And in this book, he defined peace as health, to be more precise, the absence of suffering and the presence of fulfillment in the nature, human, social, and world spaces. The table of contents, as with any books by Galtung, is always very original. Peace discourses, peace actors, peace levels. By this, he means within nature, macro, meso, macro, mega, and meta. Meta means crisscrossing of those different levels, typical of Galtung's synergistic thinking. Then this is one of the most important conclusions of his decades of his work. Peace equals equity multiplied by harmony, divided by trauma and conflict. Humorously, he said, you may not understand what I'm saying, so let me spell this out. The second book he emphasized to be one of the 4 most important books in his life is Theory of Conflict. In it, he outlines and distinguishes between 3 different kinds of conflict. One is simple actor-oriented conflicts. 2 is complex actor conflicts. The 3rd is transforming structural conflicts, conflict-generating systems. Then he talks about conflict that cuts across spaces, micro, meso, macro, mega, and once again, meta, that brings all those levels together. The sheer creativity he demonstrates. I learned so much from that book. The 3rd book he sees as one of the most important is A Theory of Development. And he defines development as unfolding, including in a cultural domain. de-development as macro history, de-development as imperialism, development across cultures, development across species. The fourth book that he highlighted as one of the most important is a theory of civilization. And he defines civilization as meaning. In this book, he also talks about cosmologies of civilizations, institutions as carriers of cosmologies, implications of cosmologies, exploration of civilizations. In that Transcend meeting back in 2012, although he said 4 of the most important books, I was definitely waiting for another one that was forthcoming. And that book, which I would add to the list of 4, is this one. Deep Culture, Deep Structure, Deep Nature, 3 Pillars of Peace Theory and Peace Practice. The concept of depth is a hallmark of Galtung to me, and he defines deeper depth as the culture, structure, nature we are unaware of, not conscious of, or consequently do not articulate. And he looks at not only the depth in culture or depth in structure, depth in nature, the integration of the 3. I think it's brilliant and incredibly important. However, the practitioner side of me says that there is something that really inspired me incredibly. And he was so kind to write a foreword for my 2009 book, Creativity and Conflict Resolution. On that occasion, I asked him to go through his journey as a practitioner. He singled out this particular article, Science as Invariance Seeking and Invariance Breaking Activity. And he wrote this, published this in 1974. In this article, he argues something like a science programmatically limited to seek invariances. Invariances are unchangeable law-like phenomena, is at best only half a science. At worst, tool in the hands of status quo-oriented groups. It is only one side of science. The other side, that of breaking pathways to new reality by breaking up invariances, is equally more significant. And he said that this 1974 article was a starting point for him to be a real mediator. And then he started applying this concept of paradigm shifting, paradigm breaking approach to things which are seemingly unchangeable and embedded in cultural and structural violence. In 2008, he published something of a culminating nature of a journey he started back in the mid-1970s. That is this book, 50 Years, 100 Peace and Conflict Perspectives. I clearly remember that he was very happy and proud of publishing this book, because this is a very rare book that talks about the applications of his invariance of paradigm breaking practice, as well as the application of diagnosis prognosis therapy framework to as many as 100 real-world contexts of conflict based on his own dialogues. I just came back from Sri Lanka, where I listened to different communities affected by conflict, did a social reconciliation workshop. And I was reminded of how many visits Galtung made to that context, Sri Lanka. But this particular one has a wide range of case studies, from Palestine to the divided Korea, all the way to global warming, energy conversion. I wonder how many people in the field actually read this book and see what peace building practice actually looks like on a global scale. Now, for me, I have a lot of lessons I learned, and I personally believe that these lessons are not only for me, but also for the entire field. Despite different decades or ages to which we belong, those lessons are of enduring nature and relevant for decades to come to our field and to the world. Number one is the need to see all relevant factors, issues, factors, their dynamic interactions holistically and comprehensively. Second is to build the capacity to recognize and articulate the essence of complex phenomena. I think Galtung was an absolute master in wordsmithing. Complex ideas summarized in very succinct terms, and he names them not only in English, but in many other languages. The importance of being creative and imaginative, transcending the seemingly unchangeable reality that binds us. Fourth is to initiate dialogues with all parties. Even if some of the parties are very unpopular and seen as outliers, even terrorists. Fifth, formulate and disseminate constructive, concrete, and compelling proposals, regardless of the magnitude and complexity of the social conflicts and problems at hand. Number six is the need to take concrete actions in addition to discussing actions, theorizing actions. And finally, to me, study many languages. So those are some of the inspirations I got from Johan Galtung, and thank you, Mr. Galtung.